That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, my dudes, we are at that time of the year. We're going through and getting out these waiver wire pickups now. Of course, guys, you know we're going to be doing this every single day, so please make sure you go down there, subscribe to the channel, drop a like on the video. And how we're going to do this is how we do every single waiver wire video. I'm going to go from leagues that are the most shallow to deeper and deeper and deeper throughout the entire video. That way we cover a little bit for everybody. If you're playing in an 8-man league, then I'm going to get a guy for you. If you're playing in a 14-man league, I'm going to get a guy for you. If you're playing in a dynasty format, I'll get a guy for you. I mean, we're going through and we're just going as deep as possible. So of course, don't go and drop someone off your roster and pick up anybody on this list just willy-nilly. No, you have to, of course, just understand your league format and the cutoff for a player to make an impact in your starting lineup. But of course, we'll get into that in 1 second. But before we do, guys, y'all know what I have to do, guys. And here we are going to be talking about my favorite place to play fantasy football. And they're going to be offering so many different things this upcoming season. And we're going to be live streaming very often. Don't know if we can do every night, but we're going to be live streaming there very often on Underdog Fantasy, my favorite place to play fantasy football. And what's fantastic is if you make a $10 deposit with promo code FLOCK, I mean, you actually get our 2021 rankings, our 2021 draft guide, just for a $10 deposit. That's hundreds of pages of information. And to go along with it, you get $25 added to your account. So you're getting paid money to go out there and get into some fantasy football contests. And at the same time, you can come out, interact with me on the live stream, get in a draft with me. And to go along with this, you get probably $90 worth of information just in the fantasy guides alone. So make sure you take advantage of that. Supports the channel a ton. And now let's get into our first receiver. And he's going to be rostered in 49% of leagues. So we're going to make that 50% league cutoff. That's going to be strong. But 49% of leagues, Jakobi Meyers is rostered. How is this not more? What am I missing here? Jakobi Meyers, I mean, he had a very strong stretch in 2020 where he showed some great flashes. And guys, he was playing with Cam Newton as his starting quarterback. Now here with Cam, I mean, Cam is not a quarterback, at least at this point in his career, or he wasn't in 2020, that you want to be your quarterback for a starting receiver. I'll say at prime Cam Newton, yes, we love Cam Newton based on what he can do on the ground. But, I mean, the arm strength wasn't there. Yes, Cam Newton was good with what he allowed the New England Patriots to do just in the rushing game. But outside of that, I mean, it was like the worst case scenario for these receivers. And Jakobi Meyers, despite that, I mean, did have some very impressive performances. I mean, Thomas can throw him on the screen for y'all right here. And to go along with that, now he is getting a pretty big upgrade, because I can't sit here and tell you for sure that Mac Jones is a considerably better quarterback for NFL purposes, but I can for damn sure tell you that Mac Jones, based off of what we saw this preseason, based off his last year at Alabama, is going to be 100% a better quarterback for Jakobi Meyers, and that Mac Jones isn't going to be vulturing a lot of the production in this offense himself. I mean, Mac Jones is not going to rush the ball at all. And B, we know that Mac Jones can actually go through and look to get the ball to whoever's open. And now we actually have some injuries. We have an injury to Hunter Henry earlier this preseason. We also had a slight ankle injury that nobody really talks about to Jonnu Smith. So two of the pass catching options that they actually added into this offense, I mean, they're not necessarily getting in 100% of the rapport that they could have had with the Mac Jones. So that's going to a Jakobi Meyers. And to go along with this, I mean, yes, I understand. They bring in Nelson Agholor. They pay Nelson Agholor a lot of money. Agholor and Jakobi Meyers, I mean, they don't necessarily run the same routes. They're pretty much two different receivers on the field. I actually think that Nelson Agholor is probably going to be pretty good for Jakobi Meyers and drawing defensive attention away from him. So I think with the quarterback change here, you could actually see the overall offense skew a little more pass happy. I think you could also see more passing volume in general. That passing efficiency should go up. Jakobi Meyers had some very strong flashes in a very bad situation last season. So Jakobi Meyers only rostered in 49% of leagues. Definitely want to go out there and make that pickup. And now let's go to our next guy here. And our next guy is going to be someone that I want to say probably has a higher ceiling than anybody else on this list. And it's going to be Elijah Moore. So Elijah Moore is rostered in 39% of leagues. So out of every 10 leagues, there are going to be 6 of y'all that can actually go out there and pick up Elijah Moore. And if you've been playing Dynasty with us this offseason, you know exactly how exciting Elijah Moore is coming out of Ole Miss. But let me fill you in if you weren't with us scouting these rookies coming into the NFL. And quick side note, when you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy, make that $10 deposit, you also get an in-depth draft guide just based on this rookie draft class. That's over 100 pages as well. So make sure you take advantage of that. And here with Elijah Moore, this was an incredibly impressive receiver, and that if we just go through and look at his career at Ole Miss, well, first off, let's even take it further than back. I mean, we go and we see that he was a 4-star prospect coming into high school. Then from there, yes, he gets to Ole Miss his true freshman season. Not hyper productive, but does he have an excuse that he's not hyper productive his true freshman season at Ole Miss? Well, what if I tell you that he was playing alongside A.J. Brown, that he was playing alongside DK Metcalf, and even Dawson Knox. Dawson Knox, I know he's not the same caliber as an A.J. Brown or a DK Metcalf, but still a quality NFL pass-catching tight end in Buffalo at this point. So, I mean, you're not expecting an 18-year-old Elijah Moore to be able to outproduce A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf. You're not even expecting him to have a very large role on the offense with them there. However, as soon as they leave to go to the NFL, Thomas will throw up the stats for y'all. Elijah Moore had over 800 receiving yards at 19 years old, which isn't that impressive, but you have to keep in consideration the context of the offense. The next best receiver on Ole Miss did not crack 200 receiving yards. That is ridiculous to see. This is the SEC. He's 19 years old. And then from there, you think that, okay, well, I mean, Elijah Moore has to be popping up on your radar. But then he goes to his true junior season. Elijah Moore in the SEC at 20 years old averages 150 receiving yards a game. That's my point. That's my case. I think that we can move on from here. Of course, we're going to talk about this a little more, but I mean, that kind of shows you exactly how good Elijah Moore is. And a lot of people are a little worried about the athleticism. He goes to his pro day way faster than anybody expects. Elijah Moore skyrockets up to being a beginning of the second round pick for the New York Jets. I will say it's slightly concerning that they do restructure Jamison Crowder's contract. They do bring back Jamison Crowder. However, I'm looking at this as a spot where I think that we actually have Elijah Moore as someone with an elite ceiling. And what is great with an Elijah Moore, because one thing I want to talk about with these waiver wire wide receivers is we don't want to be rostering guys. We don't want to be picking up guys right now that we're rostering for the long term, but we don't expect to see anything anytime soon. I actually think with an Elijah Moore, we can see exactly what his role is week one. And if you pick him up in week one, he's not running that many routes. Who the hell cares? Drop him, and then you can pick him back up in week 4 whenever he does get on the field. However, I mean, this is the perfect scenario, and then I actually think that we are going to see Elijah Moore out there running routes. I think that he is going to be getting snaps right away, and that's going to give us a great insight on what we have. Because I talked about this on the waiver wire running back video, but at this time, we definitely need to be going through and we need to be trying to pick up players that we're going to have a plan just 3 weeks out. Because the last thing you want to do, 2 other rookies that I really like from this draft class, in Rondale Moore and Terrace Marshall, both of those guys, I'm not advising you to go out there and pick up. Because the problem with those players is I think that they're actually long-term bets. I don't necessarily expect them to make an impact right away. So the last thing you want to do is have to pick them up, then roster them for about 7 weeks to see if they're going to do anything. No, not necessarily worth your time, not necessarily worth that roster spot. However, with an Elijah Moore, I think that we're actually going to get to see him on the field a lot earlier than that. So yeah, go pick him up, go play him. I mean, don't put him in your starting lineup week 1, but go watch how he plays. Hopefully the Jets get him out there, and that's going to give you great insight on if you should be going out there and continuing to roster him. And now our next player is going to be in a similar mold. It's going to be Bryan Edwards. And I will be the first person to admit here, guys, that whenever we had the Bryan Edwards full-on hype train coming out of training camp this offseason, I was sitting here going, well, you know what? Here we go again. We got this last year. I don't necessarily want to be making drastic changes to what we're going to be doing in fantasy football. Well, that changed. That changed whenever we got to the preseason. We got to the preseason, and you would think that your wide receiver that you like in camp, your wide receiver that is kind of surging but had a disappointing rookie season, you would probably want to get them out there on the field. Well, Las Vegas did not play Bryan Edwards, but it wasn't because Bryan Edwards was injured. It wasn't because they didn't think Bryan Edwards was going to make the team. It was because they are so confident with Bryan Edwards at this point that they go, oh, he's a bona fide starter. We don't need to see him on the field in the preseason. We don't need anybody else to see him. Let's just keep him for ourselves. I mean, Bryan Edwards not playing, some games in the preseason was massive. And then they go out of their way. And the guy that they signed this offseason, someone I was actually drafting on Underdog Fantasy, and now I'm looking like a complete idiot, and I'm willing to take my L, is John Brown. I mean, they go and cut John Brown to where all of a sudden, now you're 100% expecting Bryan Edwards to be an every down player. And what's perfect for Bryan Edwards, A, he's only rostered in 12% of leagues, so everybody can go out there and pick him up. And B, this is a player that's going to see the field right away. So he's not the player like a Terrace Marshall, where we already said this. With the Terrace Marshall, while yes, I love the talent, but the problem is he's going to clog your roster at the back end for the first 7-8 weeks of the season before you even know if you have anything. With a Bryan Edwards, you pick him up now, you watch 2 to 3 weeks of how he plays, and then from there, if you don't like it, well, you can say, all right, Bryan Edwards, thank you for your service. We're going to just drop you down. We're going to go get the next interesting guy off the waiver wire, and it's no cost to you. You need to be avoiding these players that we're going to be taking, and then we're going to have to wait 7, 8, 9 weeks to see what they're looking like. No, the Bryan Edwards, you're going to get that information right away. And now our next wide receiver is going to be someone also rostered in 11% of leagues. It's going to be Parris Campbell. Okay, so I will admit, I've gone through like an entire range of emotions with the Parris Campbell. Earlier this offseason, I was screaming that Parris Campbell was 100% a trade target of ours. He was a waiver wire target in Dynasty. I mean, we wanted Parris Campbell in our life. And then at the beginning part of the preseason, I mean, we were seeing Zach Pascal get a lot of snaps, and I was going, oh my God, is Parris Campbell really not getting enough work with the first team? Are we going to have to make Parris Campbell an undraftable player? I was maybe wrong on Parris Campbell. Maybe we're going to have to take the L here. Maybe we don't have anything. Well, now with the T.Y. Hilton injury, T.Y. Hilton going on the short-term IR, we're going to know exactly what we're getting with Parris Campbell. He fits the same exact mold as a Bryan Edwards. This is a receiver that's coming out of Ohio State in 2019 as someone that was literally more productive, extremely more productive at a younger age in the exact same situation as all of your favorite receiver in Terry McLaurin. And I know I'm not saying that Terry McLaurin is worse than Parris Campbell. I'm not saying Parris Campbell is better than Terry McLaurin, but I'm trying to allow y'all to remember how impressive Parris Campbell was as a prospect. He also was an incredible athlete coming out of Ohio State. I mean, that stuff has to matter. We have to remember his rookie profile because the problem is he just hasn't been able to stay healthy through his first 2 seasons in the NFL so far. And if he can't stay healthy through his first 2 seasons, well, yeah, I mean, we're not necessarily going to get to see how he looks. Well, I mean, what you are going to get is you're going to get a massive discount on him in fantasy drafts because he looked very, very good at the beginning part of 2020. Now, yes, that was an extremely small stretch given the fact that he got that knee injury. But I mean, you're not worrying about that injury at all anymore. And even if you wanted to try to come out here and make the argument, Mason, Parris Campbell's injury prone. He's injury prone. He's going to miss time this year. Who the hell cares? He's rostered in 11% of leagues. You're telling me you can't go out there, pick him up, and then just see what we have? I mean, that makes no sense at all to me. So now another receiver that we're going to be throwing on this list is someone that if you read our Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide, I'm not a massive fan of his, but at this point, he fits this mold. We're going to see that role right away. I mean, he's not going to be Terrace Marshall. He's not going to be someone clogging your roster. Instead, Amon-Ra St. Brown, only rostered in 9% of leagues, rookie coming out of USC. And if y'all don't know about his profile, I'll fill you in real quick. If you pull up his athleticism, I mean, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that his agent would even tell him to run the 40. I mean, it's one of the slowest times you're ever going to see. A very unimpressive athlete. But we have shown this historically with math behind it. I'm sure a lot of y'all read our Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide by now that athleticism matters a lot for some receivers and others it matters none for. And the guys that it does not matter for are going to be those slot wide receivers. We have seen this time and time again. And now here with the Amon-Ra St. Brown, great news for everybody. That's exactly what he is. So he was someone that I was looking at going, okay, well, he's being overdrafted. I don't necessarily see what he is doing here, why he's impressive at all. And week 1 hasn't even started yet. And now I'm looking at it going, okay, well, at least he's worth a roster spot. Brashad Perriman's gone now. That was a surprise cut. I mean, talk about me holding my L. I was drafting Brashad Perriman on Underdog Fantasy as well earlier this offseason. I mean, it's 2 pretty big L's for me already in this video. But I think Amon-Ra St. Brown's the perfect guy. You pick him up, you see what he looks like in weeks 1 and 2, even if, I mean, he goes out there and produces and you're like, you know what, Mason, I still don't believe in him. Well, he'll be a rookie that produced through the first 2 weeks. He's someone that people know the name of. So at that point, you can go through and you can trade him, maybe package him together with another receiver, get an upgrade and bring someone else in from the waiver wire. I really just think that we need to be targeting these young guys with upside that can have opportunity right away. That way we can try to churn the bottom of our roster because we need to remember, I mean, we know very, very little at this point. By the time we get to weeks like 6, 7, 8 in the season, I mean, we're all going to be pretty much Albert Einstein with the amount of information that we have, with the amount of data that we have. But right now, everything that we're working with is just strictly projections. So at this point, we have to understand that weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4, there are going to be waiver wire options every single week that you are wanting to pick up. So that's why on this list, I've included guys that I think you would be fine going out there and cutting if they do not produce right away. However, these are guys that can see the field. These are guys that we're not only just betting on the talent with, we're also looking at them having a role week 1, that we get that data. Because if you go and you get a roster clogger receiver, you're not getting anything in. So as soon as we get James Robinson from last year as an interesting waiver wire pickup, as soon as we get Myles Gaskin from last year as an interesting waiver wire pickup, say that happens and you have another running back this year that you want to go grab. If an Amon-Ra St. Brown goes out and he only runs 40% of routes for this offense and he does draw targets at a high rate, I mean, who cares that you picked him up? Go drop him for someone else, but at least you took a shot on someone we're going to have some data with. That way you can feel comfortable just going through and continuing to churn the bottom of your roster, because that bottom of the roster is going to be so important to optimize going into the season, knowing how we are going to be strategizing for the rest of the year. And an honorable mention I'm going to put on this list is someone that's not playing the receiver position, but we'll throw him on. Gerald Everett. I was honestly surprised to see that Gerald Everett's only rostered in 36% of leagues. Now, if you are playing in a league and you drafted Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, if you have one of those 6 tight ends, I only want you rostering one of them. If you have one of the top 6, just roster one and then you're done from there. However, if you waited beyond that and your tight end 1 is someone like a Noah Fant, your tight end 1, someone like a Mike Gesicki, your tight end 1 is someone like a Tyler Higbee, and you only have one tight end, I definitely think it would be beneficial for you to go and pick up Gerald Everett from the waiver wire. This is someone that gets signed to Seattle from Los Angeles this past offseason. We have to remember he's going alongside with Shane Waldron. Shane Waldron was there in Los Angeles with him, who's the new offensive coordinator for Seattle. And I mean, he was a very talented player coming out of that 2017 NFL draft class. I will say he was a very raw player at the same time. We know tight ends, they do not break out right away at the NFL ever. So, I mean, it's understandable that he has a limited role in Los Angeles, but it's going to be an offense with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, one of the highest efficiency marks in the NFL. So possibly you see Gerald Everett, if he can come into his own just at the end of the season, he's going to be doing so in a great situation. So I'd love to take advantage. And yeah, that's all I got for you, my dudes. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope you got something from it. And yeah, that's should be it. You know, I'm going to be live streaming every single night. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell. And if you want to come out and hang out with us in a live stream, just make sure you're signing up for Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK. Make that $10 deposit. You can find the link in the description and you get our draft guide, our rankings, $25 added to your account, and you support the channel a ton. That's all I got for you, my dudes, and have a great day. Thank you to everybody supporting the show on Patreon. We got some new members in MCGC, Brian, Matthew, Craig, Ian, Woody, Colt, Marcus, Jack, and Nicholas. Thank you, my dudes.